I was muted. Okay, sorry. Okay. So as I was saying, apologies for the delay. A little bit of a technical difficulty happening there. Hope you all are well. Happy Saturday. Welcome to High Strangeness. Thank you for hopping in. As you can tell, I'm a little disorganized tonight. Can you guys hear me now? Am I good now? Which side is this? This is this side? Okay. I hate seeing my background. It's my acting background. Whatever. Anyway, all right. I think I'm good with the audio now. So as I was saying before, thanks for joining tonight on High Strangeness. Happy Saturday. I hope you all are dreaming your pulse chain dreams. I know I certainly have. Specifically, I keep dreaming about the day I can quit my job. I hope Pulse brings that to us. I can't believe we're within that 14-day window now. If it happens, do you all think it's going to happen? I mean, I can't imagine him specifically saying mid-May. It's the first time he gave something specific. So I'm thinking it's going to happen. I'm feeling a little unprepared, but I am ready for it. So hope you guys are doing good tonight. Hey, everyone. Hey, Vision Null. Hey, my online ghost. Rolly 30. Hey, Crypto Gains Club 369. Thanks, guys, for coming. And thank you to those of you who came to the Adapter Get Wrecked live stream earlier this week. I'm sorry I wasn't going back and forth with the chat too much. Some days my brain can focus on both, and some days I can't. So it was one of those days where I couldn't. So, hey, Bullish OX. How's it going? So I'm going to do open lines again tonight. I am going to drop the StreamYard link into the, into the chat. Anyone who wants to come in, you just click the link. You can keep your camera off if you want and just speak, and preserve your identity, or you can come on and chat with us like we did last week with Matt from Crypto Heartbeat. Any thoughts you have about UFOs, the paranormal, Bigfoot, anything, if you want to share your experiences, you're welcome to come on and chat about it. So I will drop that link in there now. Rolly 30 says, you're thinking yes, but who knows? You'll believe it when you see it. Same thing. I'm going to be positive. I'm thinking it's going to happen soon, the Pulse Chain launch, but I am also, I'm not getting my hopes up too much. I'm like, whatever happens when it's out there, then I'll believe it, because it's been a little bit of a long road, right? For us. S7 makes me think of S Club 7. Do you remember them? The day is soon to come. I think faster than you think. I know, the fact that he's go and practice on testnet and keep checking your sacrifice balances, really is making it feel really real for me. So let me drop that link into the chat. I'll keep dropping it every now and then, so as new people come in. Alrighty. Yeah, so it's kind of free form open lines, just like on Coast to Coast AM. And whatever you guys want to talk about, any thoughts or anything you want to come on and join, open lines tonight. I'm just going to adjust this camera. Otherwise, I'm going to stare at that all night. It's still, almost got it. Close enough. My brain is going to hyper focus. Anyway, so what are you guys reading? I showed you a lot of UFO books. Anybody reading any good UFO, paranormal, Bigfoot, any type of books like that? I feel like we should make a common bookshelf where we all just have a site somewhere where we can just recommend each other the best reading on this stuff. I want to start reading Alien Intrusion. One of my good friends sent this to me a few years ago, but I've been really bad with reading the past few years, and I'm getting back into it. So so Matt and I last week, if you were there, had talked a little bit about the connection between the demonic and aliens and UFOs, and that they're not maybe friendly extraterrestrial visitors, but are actually something more spiritual. So this book goes into depth about this. And there actually is a documentary on this too, if you'd like to explore that instead of reading the book. But I'm going to dive into this, and then maybe there's some tidbits we could talk about too eventually. It's called Alien Intrusion, UFOs and the Evolution Connection, which is interesting. I don't know how evolution ties into that. And it's by Gary Bates. Hey, David Lee, driving and listening like the old days with art. Be safe out there. Thank you so much. I love that. That's my, that's my, that's kind of like my dream, coast to coast AM type stuff. So I'm trying, but that's, I don't know. I guess there's something so nostalgic about it to me too, because I never stayed up that late, but I know my dad would listen to it late in bed, and then he would tell me like some of the crazy stuff he heard, and we would just be like around the kitchen island, me and my sister, just like, whoa, like all this like insane stuff that he would hear on it. And I remember there was this one episode that my dad said he was like so fascinated and engaged with, and it was like, that there were these taverns found under the earth, and it was getting into hollow earth theory, and that these investigators started going down and deeper, and they started finding this and that. And like the segment went on a really long time. And then they started talking about these seal like creatures that were down there. And my dad was like, his mind was like just blown. Like these seal like creatures, like, whoa, there's these different species down in the hollow earth. What's happening here? And so, I guess they kept leading everybody on for like 45 minutes to an hour. And, it's the middle of the night. My dad's up awake, because he wants to hear the resolution to the story. And then they get to the end and they're like, we can communicate with these seal like creatures through boom boxes. And my dad was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. So that's like one of my biggest coast to coast AM memories. But I remember also in high school going in this no, I was going to say something, but I'm going to date myself, so never mind. But we'd go into the library instead of doing work on the computers. I remember I would be on the Coast to Coast AM website looking up all the creepy news and everything else I wasn't supposed to be doing in there. Crypto Gains Club. I was watching videos today on portals between the magnetic field of the Earth and Sun. I have to say, when you start looking into that magnetic field stuff, I think even scientists are starting to acknowledge like the concept of portals in our magnetic fields, which is kind of like, it always kind of sounds like conspiracy theory, but I heard a few years ago there was this talk of they're finding that there's like this teleportation happening of electrons or something at the Earth's poles and in the magnetic fields. And basically like it was some sort of portal, but of course they talked about it in a scientific way, but it makes you wonder what that could eventually turn into in the future. Could this be something related to space travel? So magnetosphere multi-scale mission. Okay, so is that what that's called? And I wonder if we're talking about the same thing. Rolly 30. I don't read a lot, but the last book I did read was really good. Nothing paranormal or anything, but really good. More like spiritual, I guess, and it helped me out. The book was The Alchemist. I've heard of that. I'm going to have to look into that. Thank you for the recommendation. I'm not reading anything paranormal at the moment, but I just started, I'm about halfway through The Prophet today by Khalil something. I don't remember his name. And I'm finishing up The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Art of War. I totally recommend that to everybody. I think that's a must read because it's not only applicable to, war tactics, but I feel like it applies to anything in life. Your relationships with people, your business relationships. Like there's so much there and so much to it. And you could also look at it in terms of what's happening in the world today and seeing kind of the mistakes they're making and or even understanding the things they're doing. So Art of War to me is just mind blowing. I first listened to it on audiobook and now I'm like, I have to read this, in paper too. So Rolly 30, you've read The Art of War too. It's a good one. Yeah, I think it's like one of those must reads. Everybody should totally be reading The Art of War. Yeah, so like we should just have like this book recommendation thing going. Maybe I'll make a website and we can all like kind of talk books there too. Yeah, Art of War is a classic. And you know what? It had been on my dad's bookshelf for so long and I was always aware of it. And I'm sure we learned about it in school. But for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, because I had because maybe I had like a free audiobook or something last year. I'm like, let me just listen to it and let me see what it's all about. And I'm glad I did. I feel like it's one of those books that I want to return to every year. And I sometimes find myself like screenshotting or not screenshotting because it's a book, taking pictures with my phone camera and saving it into my favorites because it's so mind blowing that when it was written and that it was written about war tactics is just so applicable today to like so many facets of life. People pass it up thinking it's only war tactics. Yeah, exactly. So when you look at it, it's like I don't know what to describe it. Philosophy, interpersonal relationships, business, just everything. It covers everything. It's they don't teach that in school. And you can see why. It's useful. Of course, they're not going to teach useful things in school, right? Hey 369, nice to see you guys. Thank you all for showing up tonight. Again, open lines tonight. Anyone who wants to pop in can pop in, and just like coast to coast style. Tell me what you're up to. Tell me what you're thinking about this. Any experiences you might have had. Bobby Hexelrod has some pretty interesting stories. I asked him to come on tonight, but he's busy. Maybe one of these days he'll come in and tell us his stories. I also had another idea. Last year, I was at a UFO fair in upstate New York, and I had met a UFO investigator. I had spoken to him because he was interested in some footage I have, which I had forgotten to mention last week. His little story, and I'm curious if maybe he could come on and talk to us about his work. So I'm going to try to reach out to him and maybe dissect my video and dissect some of our videos too. So just a thought. So I'm going to reach out to him. So let me tell you about the video that I had to send him. So I get out of my car and I look up in the backyard one day, and it was fall, so there were no leaves on the trees, and there's this whole like mess of hawks in the sky. And in this region, like you see a hawk or two, you don't see tons of them. So just to see this massive, relative for the area, flock of hawks, just kind of circling in a really small area, and they were all together, was completely unusual. It made me stop in my tracks and pull out my phone because it was just like not normal for here. And then as I'm looking, I noticed there's a little silver ball just floating in the sky, and not like a balloon, not like a drone. It was just there, just floating. And the hawks are all kind of circling in that area. And then I noticed that all of a sudden, just the ball just slowly starts moving across the sky. And then the hawks that were circling one area started moving along with the ball as the ball is moving across the sky. So, and they just followed it and moved with it. And it was really odd. It was something that just really struck me as weird because we could tell the difference between a balloon or a drone or something. This was just some weird metallic object in the sky that the hawks had some sort of interest in. But the weird thing was, it wasn't like they were circling the object, but they were just in the vicinity of it. And as I was walking through the alien fair, Linda Zimmerman, who is a well-known UFO researcher in the region, had a tent set up selling all her books, and one of the books she was selling was Animal Reactions to UFOs. So I told her about what I saw and that I had video, and she's like, okay, why don't you go talk to him? He was an investigator set up just talking to people and tape recording people's stories and getting all the info down and everything. And I guess he thought it was pretty valid, legit. I never followed up with him, but I'd be curious to see what he has to say. So maybe he'll come on. But yeah, I guess because weird things do happen with animals and UFOs, she was able to write a whole book on it, which I should start reading soon. So, hey, completion fails. So was this in upstate New York? The UFO fair? Yeah, it was in upstate New York. I think it was in Orange County. It was in Pine Bush, which is one of the biggest UFO hotspots of the East Coast. So there's a few UFO fairs on the East Coast. There's also the Exeter one in New Hampshire, which is the Betty and Barney Hill story. If you're familiar with that, they were an abduction case, but I'm trying to remember what made them different. I think because the fact was that it was so documented and the police took it seriously, I think, but they do a whole UFO fair every Labor Day weekend, just centered around the Betty and Barney Hill story, which is pretty cool. So I wouldn't call it a hotspot. They just had a famous abduction story there. But Pine Bush is the hotspot, and that's why they do the whole UFO fair parade. They even have a diner that's UFO themed. So it's like New York's Roswell. You used to work in Middletown. Oh, and live in Orange County. Okay, so you know exactly where that is. Now, were you familiar with Pine Bush being a UFO hotspot? Because I have grown up in the New York region my whole life, but I knew that the Hudson Valley was a hotspot like in the 80s and 90s, but I never knew Pine Bush was like the Roswell of New York. So Is that the edge of a collapsible blue screen? And if so, can you pop yourself in space next one? I don't know. If so, can you pop yourself in space next one? I don't know what you mean by that. But that is, yeah, that is the edge of my screen, and it's taking me off. I'm gonna say it like New York, because you know what? OFF, off. Okay, but I won't get on that rant. Okay, so you did know about Pine Bush. So use the snap filters. I don't know what the snap filter is. Okay. But I don't like filters. See, like, I don't know, I guess it maybe comes from acting. We've used like green screen stuff in acting, and I don't like it. I find it distracting. I love a plain screen, a plain blue screen, and that's what I'm gonna stick with for now. Sorry. Maybe eventually I'll get used to it, but I like my blue screen. This is like the traditional self-tape background. So you lived in Greenville. Okay, I'm not familiar where Greenville is. There's a lot of villas up there. But that's Orange County, right? It's still Orange County. So, okay, so I can get a different background and the conversation is enough. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it looks kind of spookier having a dark background, right? I don't know. So where was I going with this? Okay, so one of the cool things about chatting with this UFO investigator was I got to get some insight into some of the sightings that happen up there. And I had heard this story in my Weird New York book that had talked about like all these crazy things would happen in Pine Bush. So besides seeing UFO sightings and like constantly, or people would just wait outside and just sit in their car because they were guaranteed a sighting in the late 80s, early 90s. There were also weird things happening on Main Street, the book said. Like there was a story that somebody saw, I don't know, like this person or this creature all of a sudden on Main Street, and they moved across the street, but they moved in frames, which is really freaks me out. So instead of just moving smoothly, it was moving in frames across the street. And then another thing that they had seen in this Main Street in Pine Bush was a cat, but it had a cardboard head and it was walking across the street, which is weird because that reminds me of communion, which takes place in the county above that, in Ulster County. And in communion, he saw, I think, an alien wearing a cardboard suit that looked like a dated 1950s double-breasted suit. So something about aliens trying to mimic things, I guess, end up looking cardboardy in New York State. So that was some of the weird stuff that they had seen. And I asked him to explain this. I'm like, what is this weird sighting? Like, what went on with that? What was the cat with the cardboard head? And he's like, no, he's like, New York, Weird New York wrote about that completely wrong. I don't know why they did that. They're like, that did not happen in Main Street. Turns out people were going sky watching. And the sky watchers were finding that certain things were attaching to them and following them home, which then leads, some credibility to the theory that me and Matt believe in, the idea that it's spiritual. Because, when people are dealing with paranormal and ghost sightings, I'm sure you've heard that sometimes these things attach to them and follow them from home or follow them from place to place. So these UFO sky watchers were finding that they would go sky watching and then they would come home and weird things would happen at home. And I'm not talking like abduction, but like hauntings would happen at home, which is odd because it's like two different things happening. They were going sky watching, they were watching for UFOs, but then all of a sudden they carried something home and it was presenting as a haunting at home and not as anything UFO related. And the cat with the cardboard head was one of the sky watchers, saw that walk across his living room. So that turns out that was the story, and it wasn't crossing Main Street. The cat with the cardboard head was in the Skywatcher's living room, which makes it even creepier to me, but also lends some credibility. I don't know what the word is, but lends something to that theory of maybe UFOs are more of a spiritual thing than a physical extraterrestrial thing happening. So yeah, totally weird, wild. So I do like these stories, but I won't skywatch because Oh, first time I visited Pine Bush, I'm like, let's make it an experience. I'm gonna go there and stay overnight. Um, Stayed in a Jehovah's Witness hotel, and I am not a Jehovah's Witness. That's a whole other story. Did not realize it was that kind of hotel when I got there, but it was nice. It was a nice hotel. And then I drove out to the cemetery because I guess there we go. Kind of sounds like a haunting, right? Because for some reason, a lot of these sightings happen in the cemetery and they would see the orbs in the cemetery. So I drove out to the cemetery to see if I could go in Skywatch, because this is before I really understood that. So I was being stupid. Thankfully, the cemetery was locked. So I had to turn around and go back to the hotel. But then I had noticed a couple years later, whenever they did the UFO Pine Bush thing, the festival, they would say, okay, here's a big sky watching event we have going on, and we're not just going to sky watch, we're going to do some sort of, I don't know, some summoning. I don't know if it's a ceremony, and they're going to kind of summon the UFOs. When I heard that, I'm like, absolutely not. This is crossing a line. This is like where something is going to attach to you. So, and then to hear the stories about what happened to the sky watchers. So, yeah. So for me, no sky watching. I mean, it's different from like going out in the yard or, being in town and staring at the sky. That's one thing. But to go intentionally and wait there and try to summon things, not my cup of tea after I heard those stories. That's wild. Summoning spirits is real, but I don't think they're the good guys. Sorry, I'm tongue tied tonight. I am 100% on the same page as you. Because of, okay, and again, like I said, I view things through the lens of Christianity. So maybe you guys view things differently, but that's where my biases are. And when you're summoning spirits, when you're dealing with spirits that aren't of God, there's no neutral. So in my beliefs, they're always going to be bad. So whether they're presenting themselves as a friendly UFO or a friendly ghost or pretending to be your dead family member, it's always going to be a problem. So I am totally on the same page that it's not the good guys. So whenever I see something like that, I am always running. Yeah, that was the way I was raised, and that is what I continue to believe, now that I've done my own research and looked into it. So that is, so that's the Pine Bush story. I plan to spend some more time up there this summer, because I gotta say, it is a really cute town. I do love upstate New York. I love taking a drive up there, but I won't be doing any weird stuff in the cemetery. Definitely not. So you just learned that Friday the 13th is a positive day. It has a connection to the divine feminine in us all. Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. It's interesting because some cultures look at 13 as a lucky number. My mom's side of the family is Italian, and 13 is like this wonderful, good number there. I don't know if it's like good luck, but yeah, they don't look at it the same way. Honestly, I don't know. I never got into that bad luck, good luck stuff. So it's always odd when people are like, oh, Friday the 13th. I'm like, oh, I forgot it was Friday the 13th. My only connection to it is the movies. Yeah. So, hey, sorry, I'm trying to read the little words. Hey, Insidious Tomaz. Hey, Godfather J6, Grounded in Hex, ZZ Tesco. Thank you guys for showing up again. I'm going to drop the link for open lines into the chat again, if anyone is interested in chatting, talking UFOs, paranormal, Bigfoot, anything like that. I am open to whatever you want to talk about. Just a side note, speaking of aliens and UFOs and, the belief that maybe they're not like these friendly things that people, want to make them out to believe. Have you all ever heard of freestickers.net? They're the people that put out those, if you've ever seen those stickers that are like the no alien stickers, sometimes like you see them on random posts and or just posted, I don't know, anywhere, stop signs. My sister used to have one on her car. So if you go to freestickers.net, they send you like a ton of stickers if you send them the addresses on their website, a self-addressed stamped envelope. And I did that a few years ago just for fun, because I'm like, oh, look, this is fun. This is silly. It's like, little aliens with a no across it, right? But then it was wild because I already had that belief about aliens. And then in it, they don't just send you the stickers. They send you like a ton of documentation about, you know, why aliens aren't the good guys, why they're these spiritual beings, why you should stay clear of them. So they're like it's legit when they're saying no aliens. Like it's they call themselves an anti-alien organization called to spread the word. So and look at this, wanted. That's wild. For wanted for multiple kidnapping, sexual assault, abduction, child snatching, assault, child abuse, mental cruelty, brainwashing, and other felonious activities too numerous to list. Freestickers.net. The image is courtesy of alienhunter.org. And then they have just like a write-up on this. Oh, and actually, look, the write-up is from Alien Intrusion, the book that I mentioned earlier. So I mean, it's really like they're pretty legit about their like anti-alien agenda. So that I would go to freestickers.net and request info. I love it. I think it's amazing. And they send you a decent amount of stuff. So, all right, making sure I drop my envelope on the floor and I don't accidentally dox myself. Hey, Maddie, nice to see you. Oh, glad to see you. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. I was off to a slow start and I'm still getting used to it and getting my bearings, but thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate all your kindness and support. Everybody's been awesome. Yeah, so freestickers.net. I would go for all their anti-alien stuff. I one time saw a sticker and I was never able to track down the origin. It was somebody on a motorcycle with the gun. I was in the city once, and the sticker of the guy with the motorcycle and the gun said, "Stop the reptilian agenda," which I thought was interesting because I'm like, okay, is it a silly sticker or is it legit like this type of thing? Because at the time I didn't realize there were people that would speak about reptilians and their agenda and stuff. And I don't know what I believe about that. But I was never able to track down some info. And it was weird because I saw talk online like, oh, is this a promo for V, the 2009 reboot? Like no one seemed to know what it was, whether it was legit or just somebody having fun with stickers. But I thought that was pretty wild and creepy. So open lines in the chat if anyone's brave enough to come on, because I know it's intimidating sometimes if you're not into it. If you're not, into the whole chatting on Zoom or anything. I had no choice. I had to take some Zoom classes. I hated Zoom. I hated chatting online. But my acting class, they sold the studio during the pandemic and we went to all Zoom. So I had no choice to get used to it. And it's a bummer. I miss real life stuff, but I guess, it made stuff like this a lot easier to get used to. So any Bigfoot believers? Any cryptid people in the house? When I was like in high school, I remember looking into like cryptozoology as a major. I'm like, is that a major? Can I major in that? I mean, you know what? I guess college degrees for the most part are pretty useless anyway. I was like, why don't I major in cryptozoology? But unfortunately, there were no schools that offered that major. But talking about cryptids and the UFOs, the intersection of it, are you all familiar with the Hopkinsville UFO? So the Hopkinsville story, I believe, happened in the 50s. There was this family out in Kentucky, and they were out in the woods, and all of a sudden their house became invaded by these little goblins. But I guess they looked like aliens. They had these big pointy ears and these big eyes, but they were this little. And I first heard of it when I was a kid. My dad got me a UFO magazine, and I freaking loved this magazine. And it talked about the Hopkinsville UFO. So it was this this case of like this family, just like it was a siege kind of their house by these little goblins. Hey, Susie Q, nice to see you. And it happened all night. Waves on waves of them just kept coming and coming at their house. I don't know what their purpose was. I haven't read this story in a long time. I don't know if they had wanted to get into their house. Sorry, my chair is wooden and squeaky. But they were just terrorizing this family nonstop. all night. Family went out. They even tried to shoot them off the house. But weirdly, when these things would fall off the house, they wouldn't just fall and hit the ground like normal gravity. They would float down like a feather and then hit the ground. So it was it's just this, it became this famous story because it was odd. There were things that didn't make sense about it, but it was viewed as credible, and to this day it's looked at, as a real case. And there was this documentary called Hellier. It came out a few years ago. I believe it's free to stream everywhere. You could stream it on YouTube, you could stream it on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure where else it was, but these investigators decided to look into the Hopkinsville incident, but also the Hellier incident, because they would. I hopefully I'm explaining this correctly, but there was another incident in I think it was called Hellier, Kentucky, where there was another thing happening with goblins, and I don't know if they were peeking in people's windows, and they were like the Hopkinsville goblins, and they noticed this connection that Kentucky, I'm sure a lot of you already know, has this massive underground cave system. And all these sightings seem to happen where caves were. So, there was this thought like, okay, maybe they're not aliens, maybe they're goblins coming out of the cave. So these investigators started tracking it and started making the connections. I was only able to get through a few episodes of the first series. It was wild. Their methods were pretty crazy too. Like, are you guys familiar with the Estes method? What they did was they took, exactly. There was this thought that maybe the goblins are living inside the earth and that they're not, I'm getting goosebumps because this creeps me out, and that they weren't aliens. They were just these goblins coming out of the Kentucky cave system because the goblin incidents seemed to be concentrated in Kentucky. And it was weird, like, because a lot of Kentucky's myths and urban legends talk about goblins. So something very regional too, because like up here, we don't talk about goblins. Yeah, there'll be sightings in the sky, or there were, but not goblins. Nobody's talking about goblins. So they went and they started like using all these different tactics and to investigate, and it seemed like they were actually getting some pretty serious evidence of it. Like they used the Estes technique, I believe it was called. So they took, if you're not familiar with the Estes technique, they use a spirit box. And what a spirit box is, it's used by paranormal investigators. It scans through all the radio stations, and then I guess if something wants to communicate with you, which don't want to be communicating with things, but if an investigator is communicating, whatever is communicating back with them will stop like the radio station on a certain word. So it'll let a certain word or phrase come through. So it's constantly scanning the stations. And if it wants to say, "What are you doing?" then you would hear "what" on one radio station, then "are" on another radio station, and then "you doing." But there's a lot of people who think like the spirit box technique is, you have the potential of bias because, as a human, you're going to hear on the radio stations whatever you want to hear. When you ask it a question, where are you coming from? Okay, you're going to kind of hope you hear certain things, and then you might think you're hearing certain things out of the radio station. So what the Estes technique was, they improved on it. They said, okay, we are going to have one person listening to the spirit box as it's scanning through the radio stations, and they're going to have on noise canceling headphones so that they cannot hear the question that we're asking the box. All they can hear is the radio. So there's going to be no bias in there because they can't hear that question that's being asked. And they're going to be blindfolded so that they can really focus on what they're hearing. So in Hellier, they started communicating with these goblins, and they started getting answers through this spirit box using the Estes technique. So the person was blindfolded and they had their sound canceling headphones, so all they can hear was the spirit box, and they were getting really clear answers through this. And a lot of times it's like, okay, maybe you're hearing something else, and it's just a coincidence. But no, like, it was so clear and it was so creepy. It was, I think, the creepiest thing I've ever seen on TV. Because when you watch those paranormal shows, it's like it never gives you an answer. It never gives you anything legit. It's like, oh, was that a noise? Did the door kind of close? You never get anything out of it. So to be watching this series and seeing something actually come out of it and seeing these things that seemed to be very real, it was pretty jarring. So they were communicating with a goblin who said that he was just because they were sitting on like somebody's front porch, and then there was like this kind of wood line, this wooded area off to the side, and the goblin said it was right there and started answering questions and everything. So it was, yeah, it was creepy. So I only made it part way through the series because it was a little much for me. And then I wasn't able to go, and I never wanted to go any further because they started incorporating rituals and magic and everything into it, which for me, not my cup of tea. That crosses a line. I didn't want to bring that into my house, so I didn't want to watch it. But if you ever want to read about Hellier and the Hellier goblins and see how they're connected to the Hopkinsville goblins, I would. It's worth it. And it's like I said, it gives me goosebumps to talk about. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of weirdness that happens in Kentucky. My dad is from there, but he lived in an area that didn't have a lot of happenings. But there, though, years later, there was a big sighting. So my dad is from a college town in eastern Kentucky, and it's on the border of the Daniel Boone National Forest. So for the most part, nothing like really creepy went on there. But a few, maybe like 15 years back, there was a big investigation because some sort of craft had landed and there was these lights and everything, and a lot of people saw it. So that happened there. But for the most part, my dad wasn't exposed to a lot of the weirdness that happens in Kentucky. Though my mom, who is not from Kentucky, said, that she picked up on this vibe, this spiritual vibe, that there's something going on in Kentucky. And, it kind of, it was interesting. She picked up on something. I don't know if I want to use the word creepy, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So when she started watching Hellier, she's like, this all makes sense. And it's wild because when we look at all the weird things that do happen in Kentucky, there's also a lot of occultic things that happen in Kentucky. And it has this history of, those were more isolated mountain people at the time. So we didn't know what kind of occultic rituals were happening, what they might have summoned back in the day, and what is still walking because of that. And speaking of the cave system, and so much of the weirdness does follow the cave system. I'm going off on a tangent with this cave system thing, but in the United States, have you ever heard the statistic that most disappearances, like when you look at them on a map and you overlay it with the cave system, they all seem or they seem to be very concentrated near cave openings. And not in the sense of, oh, look, somebody found a cave, wandered into it, got lost and starved. No, like are people being dragged into the cave? Is something coming out of the caves? Like these people weren't like exploring caves, but for some reason just a disappearance happened, and they just happen to be in the vicinity of cave systems. And this happens all over the United States. Orbs galore in Brazil. You know what? I hear so many things that happen in Central and South America, and I've heard so many wild stories. And I sometimes think it's because, like, in the US, maybe, we're kind of jaded to certain things. We like, maybe religion and spiritualism isn't as much a thing here anymore as it used to be. So people, if they see something going on or something odd is going on, I feel like people try to explain it away, through or reason it away. And, and there isn't that spiritual lens that people are looking through. So people, I feel like, are just being closed off to it here in the US. So things are just not happening as much. But in other countries, like, Central America, South America, I feel like people are very spiritual. And because of that, they're more open to seeing things. They're going to acknowledge it, and things are going to happen there. Because I have heard some stories from a family friend. I'll have to sit with him again and get these stories down, but of like things that have happened to him in the country in Mexico. And it's just insane to me to think that, that more things are happening in the country, out in the rural areas of these countries. And I think it's because of just people's openness to it. Like people get it, like, oh, yep, that's a ghost, they're not trying to explain it away. And because of that, they're seeing a lot more insane things. Because you know what? I think we're just jaded up here. We're so closed off, and it's too bad in the US. Orbs in the oh wait, so for the National Forest, are you talking that there's orbs in it? or that just disappearances in the national forest. Oh, the disappearances. What wasn't there a Netflix show about that? Yeah. So I don't have any desire to wander national forest or caves because of that. Um, so ZZ Tesco. Yeah, I think disclosure will change everything. The Bible actually accounts for all these things. There are a lot of amazing creatures mentioned. So why not these little creatures too? No, it's true. We don't know what's on this earth. I mean, and so many things could just be a natural part that we don't understand yet. And, that we're attributing to these, unexplained things and paranormal and the supernatural. Maybe they're just like, natural phenomenon on the earth that we don't understand yet or being kept from us. But I do think a lot of it personally comes back to spiritual phenomenon. It just, it seems to make so much sense. Like you said, the Bible is accounting for these things. And I think so. Matt was talking about last week, the book of Enoch actually covers a lot and explains a lot of this. I don't know a lot about the book of Enoch. I haven't read it yet, but supposedly, maybe it used to be a part of our Bible and it was taken out, because of editing along the way. But it seems to, like, when you look at the way things are going in the world and you look at all this phenomenon, when you look at it through the lens of the book of Enoch, like that tends to explain away a lot of it. And it tends to make the connection to the Bible and the world that's happening today. So I need to get on that and read that. So, okay, Missing 411. So Missing 411 is the show about the disappearances in the national forest. Now it's interesting. So I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that show. So are they saying that people are disappearing in the national forest just because they're getting lost and wandering off, or are they disappearing because of some sort of weird, creepy, supernatural phenomenon? Okay, so disappearances in national forests, possible portals, cryptid could also travel through too. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that idea that cryptids, because they're so elusive because they don't actually live in our world. They're not, they're not of this earth. They're just coming in and out of portals, kind of like the what is it, the Upside Down in Stranger Things, right? The Demogorgon comes out and you only see him sometimes because he's not actually from this dimension. He's coming in and out of the Upside Down. I think it's like that same concept. Yeah, so very well said. Oh, okay, what we were talking about before, the Bible and the book of Enoch. Thank you. So, but yeah, cryptids. I had mentioned this book called Creatures from the Outer Edge, and it's actually recommended by the people from Hellier. I never ended up reading it, but I had read the synopsis about it. Yeah, and it talked about the fact that, we don't have physical evidence because they're not from here, and because that they, I guess, are choosing to present themselves to us at certain times for whatever reason because they're of a different dimension. But it's interesting the amount of sci-fi that deals with that alternate dimension type thing, right? We have The Mist, where everything was, what was it, a rift, a time-space continuum rift, where things were coming from a different dimension and killing people. We have Stranger Things. And sometimes, I wonder, is sci-fi inspired by things we don't know that somebody else knows is happening? So I don't know a lot about cryptids. Are they interdimensional? Well, I guess the thing is, like, nobody knows, if they're interdimensional or not. I used to think that they were just an elusive animal from this earth that we don't understand much about. But then it always would come into my head, well, why don't we see a body? At some point, you would think, there's that joke about pigeons. Pigeons are robots. You never see a dead pigeon, right? But even pigeons will see a dead pigeon sometimes. But how come we don't find dead Bigfoots or dead chupacabras? I mean, supposedly we do every once in a while, but why aren't there more if there's so many sightings of it? So there is that belief that they are an interdimensional creature and that they're just like if you've seen Stranger Things, the Demogorgon just pops out of the Upside Down dimension every once in a while, terrorizes people in this dimension, and then goes back in. So a lot of people do believe that that's what's happening with cryptids, or that there's something spiritual. So I believe the book is called Creatures from the Outer Edge, and I'm pretty sure it seeks to explain it one of the two ways. I can't remember if they're taking the spiritual perspective or the interdimensional perspective. Um, but now I'm starting to wonder, like, if that is the answer to it, because you know yeah, we should be seeing a lot more than we are. Why is it so elusive? Why do all the tapes of them suck? Is it because that they are spiritual and they're able to somehow manipulate whatever's taping them, or they are interdimensional and their properties don't show up on our cameras? I, who knows? So they crypto journeymen. So they do go through a veil. One second you see them, the next you don't. Okay, and because they're going through a veil, do you think that means that they're spiritual, or do you think that means that they're interdimensional? And I'm gonna drop a link in the chat again if anyone wants to jump in. It's open lines tonight. If you're game crypto journeyman, I would love to hear your perspective if you want to hop in. But that's, yeah. So I am now leaning toward that view of it. I'm like, that just has to be the answer there. Though, if we look at the things that, remember the Montauk monster? That weird thing that washed up on the shore in Montauk, New York. So if you're not familiar with the region, Montauk is the very end of Long Island. It's maybe like 2.5, 3 hours away from New York City. Something washed up that they had no idea what it was. And people are like, oh, is it a cryptid? But, now coming to that belief about cryptids, I don't think it was a cryptid. I think it was an experiment from Plum Island, because people are like, oh, it was a hairless raccoon. Hairless raccoons don't have beaks. But yeah, if you ever want to look up that picture, if you're not familiar with it, the Montauk monster should wash up. So when you see that, I'm like, no, that's not a cryptid. That's an experiment, because Plum Island it is very close to Montauk, and that is a government research facility off the shore of Long Island. I'm sorry, I roll my eyes because anytime the government's doing research, it's a problem. And they think that was some sort of experiment that escaped and I guess drowned and made its way onto the shore in Montauk. And one of the wild theories to come out of Plum Island is that Lyme disease comes from there, and it was actually manufactured by the government, but they were being stupid with containment, and it got picked up by the birds that go to, the ticks got picked up by the birds that go to Plum Island, and then got brought to Lyme, Connecticut, which is where the name Lyme disease comes from, because that's where people started getting sick first. So it was an experiment gone wrong by the government. So there's the thought that, yeah, all of you who have Lyme disease, that you could blame that on the government. And there's some interesting documentaries out there, and it's unfortunate. It really ticks me off when I heard about that. Oh, interesting. So cryptids also get into your head. So that to me sounds spiritual. That, yeah. For me, that's the lens I'm going to look at it through. So, if things are getting into your head and kind of invading you like that, that's wild. I wasn't aware that happens. But yeah, so like the more things you hear like that, to me, I'm like, yeah, there's no way that these are just like little normal earth creatures wandering the earth. Yeah, there's something more going on. Wow. Thank you for dropping that tidbit. That's wild. So people who experience Bigfoot talk about a deep fear that comes over them. They get so afraid, it's like they're frozen. This is them getting in your head. Ooh, wow, that sounds, yeah, that's not a normal animal wandering around. So of course, we're never going to find the body or anything. That's wild. So, like I said, because of my background, the way I have grown up and the faith I'm in now, I like to look at things spiritually. And to me, that presents in the same way that like a demonic oppression does, or a haunting or something, also will present in the same way with that with this just insane fear that paralyzes you. Like people who have night terrors and see something in the room, there's a lot of belief that that's a spiritual thing happening, that's a demonic oppression, because you just are frozen, and that you have that deep fear that comes over you. So it's interesting that cryptids behave in the same way. So I wonder if there's a link. So they pick up their own dead like we do. Oh, okay. So, and they bring them back to their dimension? So that makes you wonder, though, if there's an intelligence happening with it. Oh, that's wild. I am learning something new every day. You see, when I was a kid, I wanted to major in this stuff until I found out there was no major, and now I get to learn about this. Thank you for dropping these tidbits of wisdom here. I'm loving this. ZZ Tesco says, it is possible that we are being conditioned by movies and the media, and we are close to getting ready for full disclosure. Okay, Montauk is crazy. Oh, Montauk is crazy for, yeah, a multitude of reasons. Because it's near Plum Island and the Montauk Project, which I think Stranger Things is based on the Montauk Project. But yeah, it's true. It's you know, for movies and the media, I feel like it's you know, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's that debate. So it's like, are they conditioning us, or is somebody in there giving us tips to what's going on and what's going to happen, to kind of warn us? Or is it, oh, I forget what something programming that they called. Predictive programming, where in order to do these things to humanity, they have to get permission, and then showing it in the movies and music, in the media, is like getting permission. Is I can't speak tonight. Apparently 9:30 is not a good time for me. I wanted to get some coffee, but it was closed. But so predictive programming. So yeah, you wonder if we're being conditioned, because I sometimes wonder, it's going to sound extremely conspiracy theorist, but Chris Carter, some of the things that came true in the X-Files, I'm like, is Chris Carter, does he know something and he was trying to tell us something? Or does it come back to predictive programming? The elites are like, that's their way of like getting good karma for themselves, saying, oh, we told humanity first. We told them through media and the movies. But yeah. So they work in groups. Well, this is getting stranger. And then all the stories about how 2 or 3 squatches will push people back until they push them to their cars. Huh. Wow. I'm just pondering that. So it's kind of human-like. I mean, it's just, I would say that's definitely a sign of some sort of intelligence happening. And you have to wonder, so if they're able to move between dimensions, let's say they're interdimensional, are they intentionally moving in and out of our dimension, or is this an accidental thing? Like, that, and I know it's fiction, but just for example, when people talk about the back rooms, like, oops, you accidentally no clip into the back room, you fall into it, and then you're stuck in the back rooms. Like, are they just accidentally falling into our dimension? Or are they intentionally coming here? And then vice versa. Do we have the ability to go into theirs, or have people accidentally gone into theirs and gotten lost? It's interesting. So they are the special forces of the forest. They're certainly sounding like that. Wow. Yeah, I'm absorbing all this. Sorry for for taking a moment to think, but this is, yeah. So your name is Crypto Journeyman. So my question to you is, so do you just do research online and look into people's stories, or have you actually gone on expeditions looking for this too? So, oh my gosh, I have a ton of questions I could ask, but no pressure. But if you want to hop in and chat, you're welcome to. Oh, the Project Blue Book Alien interview tells us our future. Was that one that was online? I don't know if that there's like a picture, there's actually a video of the alien talking to, and then people debate, is it real, or if is it just animated so that they could show us the actual real audio. But Project Blue Book, that's Alan Hynek, right? Wasn't he part of Project Blue Book and coined the term high strangeness? Okay, so you are an enthusiast online and TV. Oh, cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I hope maybe you get some expeditions in too. That would be awesome. So yeah. If anyone wants to come in and chat about this, it's open lines tonight. Tell us about your experiences. I don't think I've ever had a cryptid experience. I've seen stuff in the sky because of where I live, but never anything cryptid like. I can't think. Yeah. So I am I am stumped. I don't know what else to say about this. This is pretty cool. So interdimensional creatures. Yeah, definitely great stuff, Crypto Journeyman. I don't know if I know you from, the Hex the Crypto community or if you just found my channel, but thank you so much for coming and for sharing your knowledge on this. This is cool stuff. So, which reminds me, Mountain Monsters, I think was the name of a TV show that where guys in like the Appalachian Mountains went and hunted for cryptids. Now, my thing that I'm wondering about that was, were they actually looking for cryptids? Does anyone know this? Like legit cryptids, or were they looking for like, just elusive things that might live in the forest? Like, oh, maybe there's like an American version of a tiger. Now I'm wondering about that show. I have to look into that. But I have to say cryptids, and then in the Appalachian Mountains, knowing the history of the region and all the cave system things and the things that happen in Kentucky, I'd say is quite a combination. So your ex-wife had a UFO land in the yard of a house in upstate New York. I am telling you all, like upstate New York is insane. It's beautiful. I love it up there, but there's some weirdness that definitely that goes on. So that goes on up there. There's a story from Communion, the book that I've told you all about with Whitley Strieber. I reference that a lot because I think that's such a great example of the cases that happen in upstate New York. And one of the things that he talks about is a UFO in the front yard. He said they were all eating dinner. It was Whitley Strieber, his wife, his son, and the son's friend was up visiting for the weekend. It was like a weekend house they would go to in upstate New York. And one day as they're eating, they said they saw like a UFO just come down and kind of go, dip into the front yard and fly by the front yard. And I have driven by that house. I guess I'm not supposed to know where it is, but I figured it out and I went there. And if you look at the front yard, it's not like a regular yard that's set up in a way where you would expect that to happen. Like you can't mistake it for anything else because the road is like this, and then his house, his cabin was down low. So you can't mistake it for a headlight going by. There's no reason any lights would be down there. And plus the UFO would really have to dip down there. But they were all eating dinner and they saw a UFO dip through their front yard and then go back up, I guess like a touch and go. But he said the interesting thing was it was almost like they were in a hypnotic state. Like they all knew it went by and they all saw it and they just went, oh, it's just a plane, which is nonsense, makes absolutely zero sense. Like, if you saw a plane touch and go in your yard, you would go outside and you would be concerned, but they just all shrugged off the UFO. Oh, it was a plane in the yard, and then went about their business eating. And then he realized after the fact that was odd. It was like they were in a hypnotic state. So I think it's interesting, you wonder if these UFO landings in upstate New York and front yards are just more common than we think. I will, sometimes like I love it up there, but I'm like, I think I should stick to where I'm living now in downstate New York. The more people, the better. Though things still happen in the sky down here. So okay, talk about hexaphoton. Oh, thank you. Okay, because of your name, I wasn't sure if you were just like exclusively into cryptids or if you were into crypto too. Awesome. Another hexagon. Thank you so much. Crypto BD. Hey. So did I watch Above Top Secret? Above Top Secret, was that the History Channel series? I did not watch it, but I want to write it down now to watch. I haven't seen a ton of documentary series on UFOs, but I need to start watching them again. I started watching some Ancient Alien stuff, and I guess I take it with a grain of salt. Some of the stuff seems insane and ridiculous, but some of the stuff is really interesting. Like when they talked about Skinwalker Ranch, I don't want to visit Skinwalker Ranch. So Dr. Greer is the man when it comes to UFO disclosure. I don't know much about Dr. Greer. But you see, the thing about disclosure is I think it's, pretty clear if you followed me a bit on Twitter or on here, I don't like anything that comes out of the government. So if the government is disclosing UFO stuff to us, I don't trust their intentions. I don't trust their info. And listen, I'm not knocking anybody if you're into the whole UFO government disclosure thing, but I'm like, how are they going to use that info against us? But I guess Dr. Greer isn't a government person. I'm going to look him up. I'm writing that down. But because when I think of UFOs, I think of Project Bluebeam, that holographic projection technology. People believe that they're going to stage a fake alien invasion in order to deceive us, and stuff like that. So I'm like, are they releasing UFO info and pretending to do disclosure to prime us for a fake UFO invasion so that they could say, stay in your house, don't go anywhere, listen to the government, we're going to protect you, we're going to provide for you. So that's what goes through my head. So above top secret, the technology behind disclosure, Dr. Greer movie. Okay, so cool. Sounds like Dr. Greer isn't a government guy. So now I'm more intrigued. So thank you. So the Catskill Mountains, yeah, in upstate New York is a hot spot. It totally is, and it's too bad because I love the Catskill Mountains, but it's like, who wants to worry about UFOs while you're up there? But yeah, so that's why communion. So the Catskill Mountains, part of it, for anyone that doesn't know, part of it goes into Ulster County where communion took place. And there's also another mountain range, I believe it's pronounced Schwangunks, in Ulster County. So you have like two mountain ranges happening in that county where the book Communion took place. Communion is that UFO incident that I keep mentioning that happened upstate. So you have two mountains happening, and supposedly the Schwangunk Mountains, it's weird. It's spelled Shawangunk if you want to look it up, but I think it's pronounced Schwangunk, has some sort of magnetic forces there's a thought that there's some vortexes going on there. And that's why there's so many sightings in the area. Again, it's too bad because I love the region, but I'm like, why the UFOs got to ruin it? So, you got to run. It was so nice seeing you, ZZ Test Code. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Yeah, hex go up. I hope it goes up, and I hope pulse chain really goes up. Not to be corny or cheesy, to go for a normal term, but yeah, to the moon for pulse chain, man, for all of us. So several civilizations have been on Earth. I've noticed more and more people, how everybody talks about the Great Reset that's coming, through the World Economic Forum and everything. There's a lot of thought that there's been several great civilizations throughout Earth that actually had very high tech technology happening. Like, even the Egyptians, like there's been these things found in the pyramids that look like light bulbs and that look like batteries. So there's a thought that there have been a lot of advanced civilizations that did have technology, and that just great resets happening and knocked them out. Like that Atlantis might have been one of these. And I forget the names of these other civilizations. But it's wild because people say that our technology is not new. It's just old tech that the government knows, and then they decide when they want to give us some more new tech. And then pretend it's new, and then, but I'm like, does the government have that power? I would say the powers that be above them. Honestly, at this point, I'm like, anything's possible. I don't trust anything anymore. So Crypto BD says Dr. Greer is a real deal. You know what? I can't wait to look into Dr. Greer. Humans are a speck in the Earth's history. I love the whole concept of that there's been many great civilizations. Okay, I don't like that they've gotten wiped out through great resets. I think that's sad, but I think it's fascinating, the fact that there's so much more to our history that we don't know and that we're not told for whatever reason, probably for the reason of control. And that there have been these great civilizations that have had this advanced technology. That's why I think a lot of what goes on in Egypt is very strange. Like, there is the thought that in Egypt, I think I mentioned it last week, that there are archives under the Sphinx that they won't allow access to, because it's kind of like the Vatican archives, or even like maybe what was at the Library at Alexandria. It's this great history of different human civilizations and their technology, and they don't want us to get to for whatever reason. So I do believe in Egypt that there is a whole treasure trove of things, of proof that the Egyptians had advanced technology, because there's so much to explore. And if you look at the way we explore today, you could say, the Egyptians don't want to go into all these secret and hidden chambers, and there's all these hidden chambers that we don't know about in the pyramids. First of all, I believe we have the technology to find, these hidden underground cities in Egypt and the hidden chambers, but they don't want to. And you could say, oh, it's a matter of respect. They want to respect the dead and they want to leave everything as it is. And you know what? Governments, people, investigators, since when have they ever respected any of that? So I don't believe that they wouldn't go into that. There's another reason. And I think because it would reveal info that they're holding back from us. So I'm just going to quickly catch up on some comments. So Pulse and Pulse X is now guaranteed for May. I hope so, man. I am sick of waiting. I know we're not supposed to have expectations, but like I feel like a kid waiting for my Christmas birthday present. Like, can I open it yet? Can I open it yet? Lemuria, yes. Remember I said Atlantis and other civilizations? I couldn't remember the name. I don't know much about this, but I've heard that, like Atlantis, Lemuria is another lost civilization that might have had advanced tech going on. Dr. Greer has opportunities for anyone to go out with a group and call in UFOs. Remember, guys, I talked about earlier that happening in Pine Bush, and I went, no, thank you, because I'm like, I don't know what you're calling in, and if it's something spiritual. I think it's interesting that they do this, but I personally, I run the other direction when they start doing that. Yeah, because they do that during the Pine Bush Alien Fair. Anybody who wants to go up and go to these sky watching events, if you want to look and see if there's one happening this year. Usually they do it the night of the fair for the past few years. I personally steer clear because I'm like, I'm not bringing anything home with me. So Andrew Bartzis. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Andrew Bartzis. Thank you. He's got the answers. So many great researchers whose just names get buried because you know what? They probably know too much and would share too much. Do a new show after you do your own research on Greer. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm willing to do a show on whatever I happen to learn about Greer. Maybe, hey, if this channel grows enough and, gets enough numbers, maybe we can have Greer on sometime. That would be pretty cool. The Anunnaki is not a joke. It's his story. Yeah, like definitely. Like there's something up with Egypt. And I believe that whatever is happening there, that they're hiding, or whatever has happened there, that they have the ability, that they like to pretend all the archives, everything's gone, that there's no way, we're just kind of figuring out history. But I believe that they know and they have evidence there and they're keeping it from us for the purpose of control. Because knowledge is and learning things, that represents a type of freedom. But if you keep people in the dark, you could easily control people. So you're from Pine Bush. Okay, so then you know all the weird things that happen in Pine Bush. What era did you grow up in or did you live in Pine Bush? Because I heard like the 80s, early 90s were just insane in Pine Bush, that it was just constant stuff in the sky. Yeah, so I love Pine Bush. And I like the Cup and Saucer Diner. They have a diner for anybody that doesn't know. I had mentioned the diner earlier, and it's all UFO themed. And they even sell their merch. So I have a bunch of Cup and Saucer merch. It's so cute. So the Sumerian Tablets, which is the oldest written history, talks about all the Anunnaki. Yeah, I've been doing research on that lately. It's interesting. And again, when I look at it through the spiritual lens of my faith, it starts to really connect with, shoot, I'm losing my train of thought. In the book of Enoch, the Nephilim, the Nephilim might be another name for Anunnaki and all those gods that are written in there. So it really is interesting when you start piecing things in history, how they kind of all connect to each other. 69 to 90. Okay. Oh, so you lived in Pine Bush when people were parking on the road and sky watching and seeing things in the sky. So did you ever see anything in the sky in Pine Bush? I'm dying to know. I have never seen anything in the sky in Pine Bush because I've only gone in the past 5 years when nothing happens anymore, because I was told that Pine Bush used to be more rural. And then once they started building things up, then all of those sightings kind of stopped. I guess the UFOs like the ruralness of the stuff. Yeah, the Nephilim. Yep, that was what I was looking for, the Nephilim. So I am going to drop the link another time if anyone wants to hop in chat. Open lines tonight. You have any topic? Anybody want to throw a topic in there that you all want to talk about? So I'm kind of just freestyling tonight, whatever everybody wants to chat about. So, and definitely hop onto freestickers.net and get your free free alien intrusion info. So if I look up Andrew, go to his YouTube channel, go down the playlist, Galactic History. Okay. Okay, so that was that guy from, before. So Galactic History. It's interesting because you know how we were talking about Antarctica last week? So I was okay, so Gaia, I guess, is a streaming channel that shows all these, different types of topics like we're talking about, but has all these documentaries about it. So I was scrolling through Twitter tonight, and Annie Lobert, who runs Hookers for Jesus, had talked about that she had seen, I guess, a documentary on Gaia that says there's a base on Antarctica. And obviously we know there's bases, but she heard that there was an alien base on Antarctica. So which is interesting because last week we had spoken about why can't you go to Antarctica? Like the fact that there's nobody owns Antarctica, but yet there's these rules in place that you can't go down there without permission, and that, and I don't know if you have to have certain expeditions and everything in place. Like, it's very specialized, the way you have to go to Antarctica. You can't just sail a boat and go there, which to me is ridiculous because if nobody owns it, then anyone should be allowed to go. And it should be at your own risk. Like if you go, then you're basically acknowledging the fact that something could happen and I won't get any rescue. I think totally you should be able to go down to Antarctica like that. But of course they don't let you. And you wonder what the deal is, so we talked about this last week. What is going on that they don't want people down there? So it was interesting that tonight I was scrolling through Twitter, and then Annie Lobert said she watched a documentary saying that there was some sort of alien base on Antarctica, which, like I said, I think nothing would surprise me anymore. Yeah. So there's a hole down there that opens to the warm area, which is what Matt and I talked about last week, that there's a thought that that maybe aliens aren't from outer space, but that they live inside the earth, and that there's openings on each end of the poles. That's also a possibility. Yeah, exactly. That's what we had spoken about. And because also I think, Matt had said that in the book of Enoch, it talks about, I guess after the flood, the Nephilim being sent to live in the earth. So that would kind of go together with the whole alien race being inside the earth. So, and it was funny because I remember in high school was when I had first gotten into the hollow earth theory type thing, probably because I was hearing my dad's stories from watching Coast to Coast, and I was going to the library in high school looking up Coast to Coast AM. Yeah, I was that kind of kid. I would also read Stephen King under my desk instead of paying attention. But with the hollow earth, I went to my earth science teacher and I said, listen, hollow earth theory, what do you think? Could that be a thing? And he says, no, it couldn't be because, using, I guess, the calculations of mass and gravity and everything in the solar system, if Earth was was a hollow planet, then it would, I guess, throw off its orbit. It would throw off its rotation. It just wouldn't work in the solar system. But he said something interesting. But he says it could work because he says if maybe every planet in the solar system is hollow in the middle. And then that would mean that all our calculations are off and that our understanding of the solar system is off in general. And that maybe in that way, it could be a possibility, and that we would just have to reframe our calculations and our understanding of, planets' mass and gravity and rotation. So I always thought that was interesting, saying, okay, based on the assumption of what we know about the other planets, Earth couldn't be hollow and the rest of the planets be solid. But if all of them are hollow and we had no idea, we were wrong, then it could be a possibility. So I thought that was interesting. So Insidious Tomas says, let's make gains and maybe we can team up and figure it out. I'm convinced we'll need training for the trip. Let me tell you, if Pulse is indeed face melting gains, like Richard Hart said, then, and, and we do become, I don't want to say elite. I don't like the word elite, but, we do, do well with our money. I think we could totally fund an expedition. But, are we all going to end up dead because people don't want us releasing this info? Yeah, I think I'm too much of a scaredy cat to go, but, I'll support you guys. I'll help with the research and everything. But you know what? I think it's a possibility. And when we were talking about, Matt and I were talking about the Black Knight satellite, we're like, you know what? That is in reach. Maybe that could be our first thing, and then we can name it the Hex satellite, the pulse chain satellite. I don't know. So Far Out Aliens just got off a Zoom call. We're welcome in to the to High Strangeness Saturday night. Okay, so inside the Earth, so it's thought that there's only one race in there, even though there's many alien races. Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of goes with what Matt was saying from the Book of Enoch about the Nephilim being cast into the Earth, and then they would be the one race living in there. Yeah, I'm glad you can make it. Thank you so much for coming. So they are infinite space inside of atoms. Okay, I didn't know that. Chemistry, physics was never my strong point. Oh, that's wild. It's warping my brain thinking about that. So there's a magnetic core. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the planets have magnetic cores, but I guess he was trying to say that, based on what we know about physics right now, it wouldn't be possible for Earth to be hollow and all the other planets not to. But if our assumptions about all the other planets were wrong and everything's hollow, then it would work with our physics and gravity and mass equations and everything. The science is fake. Yeah. So, based on the assumption that the science is wrong or the science is fake, then there's a lot of things that make sense. And you know what? I think it's becoming clearer and clearer, not just these past few years, but even like the past decade or two, that so much of science is dictated by money and who is funding these studies and everything. And it really shows that there's so much bias happening in science. You just don't know what to believe anymore. Because I remember years ago when I was a kid, my mom was telling me, listen, we could have a cure for cancer and we would never know because, the pharmaceutical industry could hide it because, you can't make money off a cancer cure. You make money off of people being sick long term. So, same thing with science. My mom would always say, who's funding the studies? Always go and look and see who's funding the studies. So that's why I think like science is not this. I mean, because here's the thing. I do believe science is real. People like to make fun of conspiracy theorists and be like, oh, you don't think science is real? No, I think science is real. I majored in biology for my undergrad. I then had my graduate degree in teaching biology. I am all for science. I like science. But my thing is science is fallible. It's not this like, it doesn't have infallibility. Science always changes. You're allowed to question it, So unfortunately, yeah, science is fake because there's so much bias in science and there's so much, manipulation happening in order to manipulate us. I'm on the same page as with you. It's not that science is fake, like you said. I like the way you worded it. The science is fake. You wonder about how much of the science that they're feeding us is fake and what's real and what's not. But yet, when you actually do have people really, coming out with these interesting things that maybe are independently funded, or they get tossed aside because, like, there's no special interest in it. So sorry, I'm catching up on my on the chat here. Oh, we got an interesting chat going on here too. So Pulse will create a reality and crypto has its own bubbles of reality. That's interesting. Is that like when we talk about the metaverse? Not metaverse. Metaverse is a brand name. But when we talk about that, see that I can't wrap my head around. That I have trouble understanding. Crypto BD, thanks for the fun chat. Just put on notifications for the next one. Make sure everybody hits like and subscribe. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love chatting with you guys. I have such a good time. So thank you for being here and for going back and forth with me and for subscribing and liking. And thank you so much for having your notifications on. That makes me so happy. Yeah, smart mom. I gotta say, man, my parents, my entire family, I feel so fortunate to have been born into the family that I have been because, like, I know not everybody has wonderful families. So I really understand what I have. And my parents have been amazing. Like, they always have taught me to question things and to research and to learn, and to be curious. Like, like a lot of that, a lot of my curiosity and drive comes from the way I was raised and how they taught me. And I guess I just went off on my own kind of, you know, to my own kind of extreme with it. But no, I'm grateful for, my parents, teaching me to question things and showing me that the world isn't really the way it is, that there's so much more to it that, isn't being shown to us. So I was actually talking about that with my parents today. I'm like, you know what? Thank you for, you know, I was explaining to them because I didn't think they realized, but like when you're a kid, it makes such a difference, even reading to kids, like promoting literacy in the house, whether it's just like giving kids toys that like have, that have some sort of literacy factor, or just reading to a kid, or, showing that books are fun. I was, explaining that to my parents this morning. I'm like, all those little things you did had made such difference, like in me and my sister's, reading comprehension and literacy. So I think, so just besides literacy, I think that just goes to every area. Any parents in here, all those little seeds that you plant make such a difference. And really, you don't know how your kid's gonna, take off with it and how it's gonna affect them as an adult, but it's always gonna be a good thing. You can never go wrong with that. Whether they want to go into research, whether they want to do silly things, like whatever insanity I've done over the years with it. Um, plant those seeds of curiosity and questioning everything, and questioning the narrative. It's so important. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I credit my mom for having me question the pharmaceutical industry and science research and everything. Exactly. Follow the money, you know, that's what my mom taught me. And it's funny because had she not, I don't know if I would have came to those conclusions on my own had my mom not showed that to me. Maybe I would have, and it would have taken me a long time, but I'm glad to have figured that out when I was a kid. So, um, so don't want to be a dead horse, but a lot what you're talking about is Dr. Greer statements. I have to check out this Dr. Greer. This is pretty cool. I have Dr. Greer. It looks messy, but I could read it written down here because I'm like, I have to go see who Dr. Greer is. I'm now circling Dr. Greer. So look how long it took the Pope to allow us to know the earth is round. Listen, I'm a Christian and I respect Catholics, but like, there's something up with the Vatican and the Pope. I think we could do our own show on that, man. But like, there's something dark happening there, and the Vatican archives and the stuff that's kept from us. A lot I could say about that. But maybe we should do a show about the Vatican sometime. My sister sometimes send me some interesting stuff. But like I said, Catholics, man, I love you. I think you're all awesome and devout and everything. I just question your Pope and the people running the show, church wise. So Luis Elizondo is a part of the disinformation campaign in the UFO community. Pretends like it's all dangerous, but it's BS. I think Lou Elizondo was that guy that Matt was telling us about, who says that UFOs have a spiritual component. So you're saying that maybe it's not as dangerous as that there's something different to the story? That's interesting. So Luis Elizondo. So disinformation, but so when we talk about a disinformation campaign, who is promoting this disinformation campaign? Is this the government that's behind it? Who is like, it can't be that it's just him on his own being like, I just want to spread disinfo. Like, he's got to be backed by someone. And I wonder who is behind that. Yeah. So cool. I'm going to, okay. So the government. Gotcha. The government's behind that disinformation campaign. You know what? It's true. It's like when we talk about, oh shoot, what is that word that they call people like Elon Musk? Controlled opposition, right? He seems like he's on everyone's side, and people are like, yeah, he's gonna free us. He's going to do free speech and all these great things. But then when you look at Elon Musk, there's a whole darker side of it. Like he's a pharmaceutical shill, he's a transhumanist, um, and he's just a billionaire who doesn't seem to care about other people. I get the vibe. So when you look at stuff like that, there's that thought of, no, he's controlled opposition. He's controlled opposition. So I guess disinformation is like that, UFO disinformation is the same thing. You think Lou Elizondo is on your side, but here he is just spreading disinfo. So we need to pretend like we need to be ready for a war. Okay, we need to like we're ready for a UFO war. Is that what you mean? Lou Elizondo wants us to pretend that we're going to be ready for a war. Oh, he used to work for the CIA. There's your what's the saying? There's the rub. Yeah. Second somebody works with the CIA, like that's it. Done. They're done. Okay, you saw a UFO over a major city in 2009 at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I went from being the person. No, when you say talking smack, you mean you weren't into UFOs until you saw that mothership in the middle of the night? And you want to know what's interesting? 2009, November 2009, the reboot was released, and in the pilot episode, it starts with motherships over all the major cities. So that's wild. You saw that in 2009. Do you want to come on and talk about it? You're welcome to. No pressure if you don't want to. Okay, I'll put it in there just in case. Yeah, what city? Can you tell us what city that was in? Is it Phoenix? Oh, the Phoenix Lights happened in the 90s. Okay, too much info to type. I gotcha. I hear you. Oh, so you laughed at UFO people until it happened to you. I see. Yeah. It's kind of, so you thought UFO people were crazy and then you saw it and your mind has been changed ever since. Yeah, can you tell us what city that was in? Oh, it was in Atlanta. That's interesting because I feel like you don't see a lot of that type of stuff coming out of the Southeast. You do kind of expect it like out of the Southwest, like Phoenix and everything. Wow. Okay. So a mothership over Atlanta. And again, when we talk about sci-fi, is sci-fi priming us for something? There it was in November 2009, V released their pilot with the motherships over all the major cities. And there you were seeing a mothership over a major city in 2009. So when you say a mothership, do you have an idea? Like, can you give us the ballpark of how big it was? A lot of what we are seeing is our tech. Oh, I see. So Lou Elizondo is spreading disinfo so that people think that it's like bad spirits or whatever, or bad UFOs. But in actuality, it's our own ships by the government. And he's just doing that so that we think it's UFOs and something else. And he's distracting from the fact that everything we're seeing is our own tech. You know what? And I don't doubt that. I mean, okay, I do believe that there is a spiritual component, like abductions totally seem like a spiritual thing, alien abductions. But when we come to seeing tech, I don't doubt that at all. And actually, X-Files Revival, season 10 and 11 deal specifically with that. And I think they hit it so well, talking about how UFOs are actually government tech. Oh, sorry, clicked the wrong one. Okay, so the UFO mothership that you saw over Atlanta looked like the swimming pool arena in the China Olympics. It was giant. And isn't the swimming pool arena shaped like the motherships in V too? It's weird. Oh, speaking of V 2009, it used to be available for streaming, and then during the pandemic, they pulled it from streaming. Yes, I know streaming services have licenses that end at a certain time, and I can't say it directly on here for fear of being banned, but it's interesting because V has a very specific pharmaceutical storyline that happens that kind of gives doubt to certain pharmaceuticals. And interestingly, when we had our pandemic, it got pulled from the streaming services. It was on Amazon Prime and then it was pulled. Yeah, did its license expire? But it was very convenient, or were people afraid that it was going to spread some doubt? Were they afraid it was going to be disinformation? But yeah, that's a little side note about V. Okay, so not everything. So I'm jumping back and forth between comments and topics, but so I hope you guys are following me. All right. My brain follows it. My brain likes this. So not everything. So we were saying that a lot of those UFOs are our tech. Okay, but not everything. Oh, okay. Because you know what? Where are they getting the tech? They're reverse engineering it. So if they're reverse engineering it, then it came from something else too. So it's a combo of the two. That makes sense. I get that. And it's creepy because it's like, well, why won't they tell us that they have this amazing tech? There's nothing wrong with it. Is it because they have to compete with the other countries? But I'm sure other countries know about this tech because if they're reverse engineering stuff too, or getting visited too. But I guess because if they told us about this high-tech stuff, then they would probably have to tell us about what it was reverse engineered from, and then talk about the existence of UFOs or extraterrestrials or whatever. So yeah, some of it is probably our tech, but not all of it. So do I follow Rob and Ben from Edge of Wonder, now called Rise TV? I don't, but maybe I will now. I'm going to write them down. Rob and Ben from Edge of Wonder, Rise TV. So no, I don't follow a ton of people. I just kind of get my info from everywhere. But yeah, I'm opening to checking some other people out. So I'm going to look up Dr. Greer, and I'm going to look up them too, Rob and Ben. Okay, so this was the mothership over Atlanta. I thought I was seeing something, went back in the house, splashed water on my face, and went out to the balcony. My dog was totally freaked out and wagging her tail, staring at it. That comes back to animals. Yeah, wait, sorry. Forget which camera I'm using. The animal reactions to the UFOs. Isn't it weird that they react to it, that they know something's up? Or is it, there's thought that these things are communicating with them, or do they just recognize that it's something out of the ordinary? And the thing is, it was 2009, man, so nobody had like the cell phone cameras like we do now, which is too bad, because can you imagine getting that on tape? And you wonder, in a city like Atlanta at 3 a.m., yeah, I know it's the middle of the night, but I wonder how many other people saw it. So like, if you can remember the date, I would go on NUFORC, the National UFO Reporting Center's website. So that is NUFORC. NUFORC. If you could look up the date, or even if you have a ballpark idea of the date, you look up the date and the location, and then you could see if anybody else posted a report of the same thing. Doesn't mean that there weren't other people that, didn't see it. If you don't see any reports, not everybody reports it, but maybe somebody else did report it and has some insight on that. I would look it up on NUFORC and see. So they won't tell us about UFOs and, the alien tech, because the plan is to wipe most of us out. Well, we were talking about the Great Reset, right? It's happened to other civilizations in the past. Why would we be special and escape a Great Reset, And I mean, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that we really are in a reset time. I mean, the WEF blatantly calls it a Great Reset. And if you look at the things that are coming together on the earth right now, all the events, you could see that we're headed that way, or at least they're going to attempt that. Have you seen that? I think it's 40% mortality is up, and not because of COVID. It's what's it called? Underwriters or something with insurance. These people, because insurance, as we know, they don't always like to pay out, right? Unnecessarily. If they can find somebody else to blame to pay out, they will do that instead of them paying out. So they noticed that there was a big spike, and they are trying to figure out why there's a 40% rise in mortality, more than any other time. And, and it makes you wonder, is this a Great Reset thing? Because they said never before in U.S. history has there been this much mortality. And no, and they're not COVID deaths. So something is up and something is going on. You listen to all these topics with your on the Tinfoil Hat podcast. Oh, I thought you were saying that you listen to all these with your tinfoil hat on. Okay, so I was about to say, can you send us a picture in your tinfoil hat? Remember, like in Signs, did you guys see that movie where the uncle and the two kids are on the couch with their tinfoil hats? So I'm going to write that down. Tinfoil Hat podcast. That's a good name for a podcast. I do like that. So it's the agenda. However, they won't win. Yeah, so not to be all dark, but there is hope. People do not believe they're going to win with this great reset. There's a little too many people um privy to it. And who knows, maybe they didn't have the internet in the other great resets. We've been able to share so much information with everybody. That's one of the reasons I love Twitter. Like, people think that Twitter is a cesspit and that people are talking conspiracy theories on it, but you really get like some insight that you won't see on the news, of course, as to what's happening other places around the world, across the state, even within your own county. And I think, like, people are noticing things and sharing it with people, and people becoming privy to what happens. And I think the more people that understand and know what's going on reset wise and know where it's headed, makes it so much harder for them to carry out their plans, once more and more people wise up to it. Fingers crossed. Though, as we see, I think it's been pretty obvious that we have a lot of lemming things happening. That people, I always thought that people were smarter than they were, but I'm really seeing lately that maybe people are lemmings. They'll just follow each other off the cliff, just to use a saying. I know lemmings don't really do that. But so on one hand, I have hope, saying, okay, people are smart, people will wise up to it, people will share info. But then on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know. I see a lot of lemmings lately, but maybe I'm just jaded by where I live, and everybody's a lemming where I live. Could go either way. Yeah, financial freedom with Hex, Pulse, and Pulse Chain. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to with Hex, Pulse, and Pulse Chain, is the financial freedom that comes from it. Because with financial freedom comes personal freedom. So right now we are pretty much living in a slave system. Debt enslaves us to the elite. Our workforce enslaves us. Our educational system, because wasn't our like curriculum founded by the Rockefellers because they wanted to find or have compliant workers. So everything really is a way to enslave. And I don't mean like like being enslaved to aliens and that we're going to be mining the stuff for their ships. No, but I mean, like, there's like this non-obvious enslavement that happens, and that we are, if you look at our society, enslaved to the elites, and the only way to really get out of it is to have money. But of course, they never want us to have money. They do everything in their possibility to keep us from that. If you look at consumerist culture, they want us to spend money on everything so that we can't accumulate wealth. They don't want us to do the right investments. Notice they're always pushing you toward traditional finance, because traditional finance does not get you rich. Maybe once upon a time, but only the richer get rich with traditional finance. And we either get tiny gains and they want us to be happy with it, or we lose out. So that's why they hate crypto. They hate crypto because crypto gives the ability to have the biggest transfer of wealth in human history ever. And I think that scares them, because with a little more money comes freedom and some power and control over our own lives. It breaks us away from them, and it breaks us out of their matrix. Yeah, speaking of the Matrix, yeah, humans are like virus, spread too fast and suck up everything. That was said in the movie The Matrix. And that's the way they view us, They want us in their matrix, stuck in their system, because that's what they view us. You know what? They like us as their workforce, but really they look at us as just like, ew, it's this disgusting, virus insect thing, So let me just catch up with these. So, oh, you would come in and talk about it, but your buddy's about to launch a book about that time in our lives. Oh, okay, so you can't say anything about it. You're going to let the book do the talking, but you know what? Is there like a pre-order out yet? Is there any info you can leave us in the chat? Otherwise, when it comes out, if you can drop in the info, yeah, we'd all be curious to see what your friend is up to. So these are your plans after the financial freedom that Hex, Pulse, and Pulse X will give, I'm optimistic, and I hope that it brings freedom to all of us to get to live our lives the way we want outside of their matrix. So on a lighter note, staked a big bag for 13 years today, winning. Congratulations. Staking is always a good thing. I mean, what other, is there staking in other types of crypto? But I mean, nothing as good as Hex, man. I mean, 38% interest is pretty pretty much unheard of. So I am grateful for the staking that happens. I never liked the ideas of CDs. CDs always freaked me out because I'm like, I have to, like a traditional finance bank CD. Because I'm like, wait, I have to lock up my money for this much, and I'm only going to make that much interest, and then I can't touch it. But then with Hex, like it's so fantastic. There's so the interest is great, and then Hex goes up, like it totally incentivizes locking it up. Like it does not seem scary anymore when you lock it into Hex. So congratulations. That is awesome. That is a nice stake. So it depends what one considers winning. What are the primary objectives of the reset? I know changing over to a CBDC is part. Is that central bank CBDC? I don't know what CBDC means. Okay, but yeah, no, it's true. We don't know their objectives. So even if we think we're winning, maybe they're winning because they got something that they wanted. Does that mean, like a whole one world centralized currency? But I don't, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat at the same time. No, because I know there's a lot of people who do not like crypto because they said, listen, it's priming us to have a one world digital currency. Oh, central bank digital currency. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so it's true because like the thing with crypto, I do look at it that way. I'm like, yeah, I see the concerns that we are priming ourselves to, we're just making it easier for them to institute a central bank digital currency. And I can see that. But on the other hand, we're like, well, what other way do we have to take our power back? And I think that this is a way to take our power back. So it's almost like it's like two sides of the same coin. And I feel like you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. And I feel like when you're in our boat, then you understand the bad it could be used for. So they can't manipulate us into using their currency. But unfortunately, if you're in other currencies, like, like some of these not so nice currencies, then I see how they can easily be manipulated into the CBDC. So, I mean, two sides to every coin. And I feel like at least we're using it the right way. And using it for good, and they're going to use it for evil. I mean, it's kind of like a gun. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. So this, like crypto, you can use it for good or you can use it for evil. So, don't call it interest whales only. I know. Okay, sorry. Yield. Yeah, yield. I know. I like my brain clicked when I said it. I'm like, I shouldn't call it interest. It's something else. Okay, so the book is not about crypto or high strangeness at all. Okay. But still, if you drop it in there, we'll support him. I'm slightly disappointed that it's not high strangeness, but I understand. No, it's not good. No, totally. I just heard about an entire neighborhood being bought up in Florida, and for some sort of crazy amount of money, and it was okay. So a whole neighborhood in Florida with Florida prices. When you look at how many million, I don't know if it's 30 something million or 40 something million, you're like, they gave these people way, 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 way over asking in order to move out a whole neighborhood. So it's crazy the amount of power they have. And these people didn't say no because, and you know what? I don't blame them. It's hard. If somebody's offering you triple the value of your house, I mean, what are you going to say? I would like to think that, if I had a house that I would say no and stand up against them. But, for, most people, it's a tempting thing. So it's scary because you see how much power they have. And people are kind of powerless to resist it. And I've heard now, people are having issues buying houses because now, there's not houses to buy on the market, or they're being scooped up by people who live in different states who are buying them sight unseen, using, city money to buy in a rural place. So it really sucks. It's really where we are in a pit place, I like to have hope and think things will get better, but I'm kind of black-pilled in a way too, that I'm also like, whatever happens, happens. We just have to do our own thing, live our own lives, do the right thing. And just keep living, I guess that's the ultimate form of rebellion in a way. So, hey, Kyler, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. So once there's central bank digital currency, then they could track every penny you spend and put restrictions on how and where you spend it. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's completely valid. I see why people are concerned over crypto, that it primes us for that. So it's, it's or two sides of every coin, you know? So I'm like, by participating in this, am I helping to bring in the great reset faster? But I like to think that no, we're all freeing ourselves from that matrix because Richard Hart is using it for good. But I do think that unfortunately, people that are in other things like Luna, um, and I think MRI tanked also, I think people who are in these bad cryptos that have gone well, that have not gone well, I think they're more apt to hop into these CBDCs. So what you wonder, is it intentional manipulation of these other type of currencies, of these other blockchains, so that people will just kind of give up and go and cling to a central bank digital currency? Because when it comes to control, a lot of the times you make people desperate enough to cling to a new system. So when we look at the Russian Revolution, and the Holodomor in Ukraine and Russia back in the early 1900s, they starved people out so that people were willing to just cling to whatever system came to them, whatever new governmental system came to them, because they were desperate. If your family is starving, then you're just going to be like, all right, what do I have to do? So I think, they're part of this whole great reset thing is that they want to make people miserable. They want to make, they're going to tank the stock market. They're going to tank as many different types of cryptos that they can so that people become desperate. And they're like, you know what, I'll do. Yeah, yes, please give me a solution. I will cling on to it. So thankfully we won't be in that position because we're in a better, every Richard Hart thing, we're confident in, and, it doesn't seem to have that potential. But everyone else, you can see how they can manipulate that to make them desperate to bring them into the central bank digital currency thing. Was it Richard Hart that bought for his new country? Was it Richard Hart that bought for? I don't know what that means. Sorry, am I being dense? I don't understand the question. Yeah, no, it's true. I'm with you. That is how they're winning. And yeah, I mean, I vacillate back and forth between, are we going to win, or are they going to win? Or is it going to be, those few of us that resisted that are going to be left? But then are they really going to crack down on us? So I don't know, man. That's why I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to roll with it. I'm going to live my life and, and when I don't mean rollover, I mean roll over and submit to the elites. I don't mean it like that when I say live my life, but I just mean that I want to even when things look dark, I just want to go forward and live the life the way that I want to, the way that I feel I'm called to, and still kind of operate that and not, operate like that and not give up. I don't think I'm wording it right, but I think you guys know what I'm getting at. So I'm just going to catch up on these comments. R23, miss most of it. We'll listen when I go to a walk. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're all doing well. Everybody's still here. Thanks guys for sticking with me this long. See, this is the thing about live streaming. Like, I love chatting with you all. I'm such an extrovert, and it's so fun to be able to talk about these topics because like nobody wants to talk about it. And like my mind is blown that like people actually like that you all like care to chat with me and listen to these things that I have to say. So thank you. Like I can't wrap my head around that. Like really, you guys are into it? Thank you. So be bullish. Now they can see how bad and corrupt your crypto is. You need us to regulate. Exactly. Yeah. They want to get people desperate and say, look, you see, you were silly. You need help. You need us to come in and help you. So that's why, when you see certain things tanking, when you see certain unexplainable things happening in crypto, I believe that people are behind that in order to bring about that desperation for people to cling to a new system. Exactly. Be bullish. Right on target. Yep. Oh, so did RH buy that neighborhood in Florida for his new country? You know what? I hope he did. Yeah, because Florida, don't they call that the free state of Florida? Yeah, rather Richard Hart be buying up neighborhoods than BlackRock. Um, yeah, gotcha. Sorry, sometimes my brain is a little dense. See, I wanted to go to Starbucks and I didn't get to beforehand. For some reason, caffeine like makes my brain feel like it works better. It doesn't give me energy, but my brain just functions better. Though I found, if anybody's interested, a spoonful, like a tablespoonful of MCT oil in the morning. Wow, it was like brain fuel. Um, so sorry, I'm just catching up on these comments. Okay. Three sick yeah, resist. Totally. Resist, and honestly, I think sometimes just living your life, having a family, having children, living kind of in a way that the government doesn't want you to, growing a garden, collecting rainwater, isn't that illegal in some places? I think are all forms of resistance, Having a little army of kids that think for themselves, that's a form of resistance. So just staked another 555 5555. There we go. Last week. We'll be here for a while. I believe we'll get some answers to these high strangeness questions over the next 15 years. I am ready to be on this high strangeness ride with you guys. 5555 ride. Unless, they kill us for going after the truth. Mocking my accent. I said bought like such a New Yorker. A New Yorker. But the thing is, look, OU is ought, right? Because if I say bot, right? Is that how people say it neutrally? Bot, bot, bot. I don't know how to say. Because then that would be like BOT. So isn't OU aw? See, like I feel like I'm pronouncing it correctly as a New Yorker, bot. But it's all right. I'll stay quiet about that. A New Yorker sitting in Oklahoma City right now, Kyler. Oh, okay. You're in Oklahoma City now. Yeah, because you said you were living in Orange County, New York, and now you're in Oklahoma City. Do you still have your accent? Okay, so just go do good shit in the world. That's all anyone can do. Exactly. Because they want us to turn on each other. You can see the way everybody's turned on each other lately. That's what they want. And you know what? If you're just all loving each other and doing good stuff in the world, that is a amazing form of resistance. And that's what I think we should do with our gains, because like I said, if they're going to be face melting, if they're going to be massive gains, then let's do good with it. But we don't even need those gains to do good. We can do good in so many other ways in the world. Side note, speaking of doing good, if anyone, I have my favorite charity. Always got to say something about Hookers for Jesus. If you go into my link tree, which I think should be in the description or else it's on Twitter, you all are welcome to donate to them. I believe that there's a matching campaign going on today for your donation, but I just had to throw that in there. Oh, okay. So that's where you're from, Oklahoma City. In Oklahoma, right? Isn't there 2 Oklahoma cities? One in Kansas? No, I'm thinking of Kansas City. I'm sorry. My geography over there isn't too good. Okay, so let me see. Sorry, I'm catching up on all this. I'm a hot date on a Saturday. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. All you guys are so nice. So I'm on a group date with all you guys, or is that polygamy? Is that we're not in Utah? All righty. Cool. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through this now. All righty. Sitting outside getting clammy in this humidity in Oklahoma City. Let me tell you, this New York humidity is not nice right now. Hence why I have to have my hair in this insane ponytail. Not nice. So moved out of New York when you were 17, went in the Army, and only went back to New York for a couple of years, lived all over the world. Okay, so you were able to get out soon enough to not get stuck with an accent. My accent's gotten stronger as I've gotten older, I guess, but I don't know. I like to think I don't speak to New York. You should hear my dear friend Shannon from Hell's Kitchen. She's got the ultimate New York Hell's Kitchen accent. So, Bit Finesse, nice to see you. Yeah, I do. I love this community. I love chatting with you guys. I love chatting aliens, and thank you for being willing to sit through a chat that's not crypto related. Even though I love hex and pulse chain and pulse x talking about all that, my knowledge of all that is very intro. I feel dumb sometimes talking about it, but I'm learning as I'm going. So I always feel like there's not a ton of related to that I could talk about, but I love talking about community oriented stuff. I love chatting with you guys in the community. I love getting to meet people and adapt to get wrecked. Check out our latest episode, me and Kyler. Thank you again, Kyler, for coming. That was a wonderful chat. So I love just getting to meet people in the community and connect like this on, because a lot of us have similar interests in the community. So, I love being able to talk about this with you guys, things that are outside of crypto. And thank you all for being interested and willing to come and talk about things outside of crypto. So far out aliens, you're at a campsite next to the fire, staring at the stars, and you appreciate everyone here tonight. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone here tonight. So let us know if you see anything in the sky tonight. So yeah, watch the skies. I think that was some catchphrase for some 80s alien movie. I think it would come across the screen. Watch the skies. Does anyone remember what movie that was? I never saw it, but I remember reading about it as a kid. So yeah, far out. So yeah, I love you guys. So I'm probably going to start wrapping it up soon. We're 5 minutes short of 2 hours. Any final comments? Anybody want to throw in anything else? Any sightings, UFO, paranormal thoughts? I had such a great time chatting with you guys. I want to do this, again next week. Definitely make it a weekly thing. Oh, it's a full moon. Oh, it is a full moon tonight. Yes. Okay. Well, I hope you see something creepy fly across the moon then, maybe, or just ET. Yeah. Yeah, thank you guys. Okay, so I'll probably start wrapping it up soon. Oh, I see some other chats coming in. Yeah, thank you guys. I had such a good time. And you know what? Anytime I don't have a guest, I'm going to do open lines like I did tonight. So, if you just think about if you ever want to hop in the future, talk about anything, share anything. It's just low pressure, it's just a chat. I would love to have anyone on who wants to talk about this. So yeah, so anytime I don't have a specific guest in mind, which I think is going to be most of the time, we're just going to open it up to open lines, just like on Coast to Coast AM. So you can tell I'm heavily inspired by that. Yeah, so think about anything you might want to talk about any other week. I would love to see some of you guys face to face. So you're welcome to turn off the camera and just, use your mic. Either way, it's all good. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. We had a nice group in here tonight. You guys have a good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the aliens bite. All right. Have a good Sunday. Bye.